In November 1942, in a shipyard in Richmond, California, workers laid the keel of a 10,000-ton cargo ship on a Sunday morning. By Thursday afternoon, 4 days, 15 hours, and 30 minutes later, the ship was in the water. The previous world record for building a Liberty ship had been 10 days. Henry Kaiser had just cut it in half. Again. His name was Henry Kaiser. He is called the father of modern shipbuilding, and during the Second World War, he was considered the most powerful and influential civilian businessman in the United States, the man who, more than perhaps any other individual outside of uniform, helped America win the war. Henry John Kaiser was born on May 9, 1882, in Sprout Brook, New York. His parents, Franz and Anna Marie Kaiser, were poor German immigrants. He left school at 13 to go to work, taking jobs in dry goods, then photography, then construction. He never returned to formal education. Everything he learned about business, management, and industry, he learned by doing it. He made his way west, eventually settling in Oakland, California, where in 1913 he founded his first construction company. He started with road paving, unglamorous, essential work, and built a reputation for finishing jobs faster than his competitors promised and cheaper than anyone thought possible. He was relentlessly optimistic, fiercely competitive, and absolutely certain that any obstacle could be overcome if you applied enough ingenuity and enough effort. By the late 1920s, Kaiser was one of the most significant construction contractors in the American West. Then came the opportunity that would make him legendary. In 1931, Kaiser was named chairman of a consortium of 6 construction companies, known simply as 6 companies, that had won the contract to build the Hoover Dam on the Nevada-Arizona border. The Hoover Dam was the largest construction project in American history to that point. 6 companies finished it ahead of schedule. Kaiser then led major roles in the construction of the Bonneville Dam and the Grand Coulee Dam on the Columbia River in the late 1930s, and the San Francisco Bay Bridge. These were not merely engineering achievements. They were the power and transportation infrastructure of the American West. The electricity generated by those dams lit up cities, ran factories, and would soon power the shipyards Kaiser himself would build during the war. He also created Boulder City, Nevada, the first planned city built in the United States during the 20th century, to house the thousands of workers and their families who built the Hoover Dam. The idea of building communities for his workers, not just paying them, was a pattern that would define his leadership throughout his career. Even before Pearl Harbor, Kaiser could see what was coming. German U-boats were sinking British cargo ships in the Atlantic faster than they could be replaced. The British desperately needed new vessels. The American East Coast shipbuilding establishment, experienced, well-connected, and deeply resistant to outsiders, assured Washington they had the situation under control. They also worked actively to keep Kaiser out of the industry. Kaiser was undeterred. In 1940, he partnered with Todd Shipyards to build 30 ships for Britain at a new yard he opened in Richmond, California. Todd couldn't keep pace. Kaiser took full control, doubled the workforce, built more yards, and recruited tens of thousands of workers from across the country. He had never built a ship before, it didn't matter. He looked at shipbuilding as a construction problem, a very large, very complex construction problem, and applied the same principles he had used to build dams and roads. He broke the process into components. He standardized everything that could be standardized. He brought in the logic of the factory floor. The key insight came from a visit by one of his associates to a Ford automobile plant. In automobile manufacturing, workers welded steel together rather than riveting it. Welding was faster, required less physical strength, and, crucially, was far easier to teach to workers with no prior experience. Kaiser switched his shipyards from riveting to welding almost entirely. He also introduced prefabricated sub-assemblies, building large sections of each ship in different locations simultaneously, then bringing them together for final assembly at the yard. The results were extraordinary. The first Liberty ship, the Patrick Henry, was completed on September 27, 1941. It had taken 197 days to build. Within a year, through relentless process improvement, competitive pressure between his yards, and the constant refinement of his methods, Kaiser had cut average construction time to 45 days. Then came November 1942 and the SS Robert E. Peary, 4 days, 15 hours, 30 minutes. The watching world was stunned. Each Liberty ship was 441 feet long, weighed 10,500 tons fully laden, and could carry enough cargo to supply an entire Army division, 2,840 jeeps, or 440 tanks, or 230 million rounds of rifle ammunition. When a ship was completed, its crew boarded that same day and set out immediately to join a convoy crossing the Atlantic or the Pacific. Kaiser operated 7 shipyards, 4 in Richmond, California, 3 in Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. At the peak of production at the end of 1942, his Pacific Northwest yards alone employed 97,000 workers. He built the city of Vanport on the Columbia River, Oregon's second largest city during the war, to house 42,000 of them and their families, complete with schools, hospitals, shops, and social services. Kaiser's 7 yards built 821 Liberty ships and 219 Victory ships, a slightly improved successor, as well as more than 100 escort aircraft carriers, tank landing ships, troop transports, and other vessels. In total, Kaiser's yards produced 1,490 ships, 27% of all wartime maritime commission production. His ships were built in 2/3 the time and at 1/4 the cost of the average of all other American shipyards. But Kaiser's most enduring peacetime legacy was not a ship, it was a hospital. From the very beginning of his shipyard operations, Kaiser understood that healthy workers were productive workers. In 1938, he partnered with a young physician named Sidney Garfield to offer his construction workers the world's first prepaid health plan. Workers contributed a small amount from each paycheck and in return received comprehensive medical care. No bills, no uncertainty, just care when you needed it. On August 10, 1942, Kaiser opened the Kaiser Richmond Field Hospital, initially a single-story wood-frame structure with just 10 beds. By 1944, it had grown to 160 beds. By August 1944, most workers at the Richmond shipyards had joined the plan. After the war, Kaiser opened the plan to the general public. He expanded it up and down the West Coast. What had begun as a practical solution to keeping shipyard workers healthy grew into Kaiser Permanente, today the largest not-for-profit health maintenance organization in the United States, serving more than 12 million members. The idea that an employer could offer prepaid comprehensive health coverage, the model now called an HMO, was Henry Kaiser's invention, born in a California shipyard in 1938. After the war, Kaiser did what he always did. He found the next problem and threw himself at it. He founded Kaiser Steel and Kaiser Aluminum. He established Kaiser Fraser, an automobile company that for several years was the most serious challenger to Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler that the industry had seen since the 1920s. He developed Hawaii Kai, a vast planned community on Oahu. In 1948, he established the Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation, which remains a leading health policy organization today. Henry Kaiser died on August 24, 1967, in Honolulu, Hawaii. He was 85 years old. He had been working 12-hour days until shortly before his death. What did Henry Kaiser actually build? 4 things that endure. First, he helped win the Second World War. 27% of all Allied maritime commission ships, 1,490 vessels, built at a pace the world had never seen. Without Kaiser's ships, the supply lines that fed the Allied war machine could not have held. Second, the modern American healthcare system. Kaiser Permanente is the template for the health maintenance organization, prepaid preventive employer-sponsored care. The idea that your employer pays for your health care in advance began on a California shipyard in 1938. It now serves as the model for how hundreds of millions of Americans receive medical care. Third, the assembly line applied to heavy industry, welding over riveting, prefabricated sub-assemblies, specialized teams competing against each other. Kaiser brought Ford's factory logic to shipbuilding, and the concepts he developed are still in use in shipbuilding today. Fourth, the power infrastructure of the American West, Hoover Dam, Bonneville Dam, Grand Coulee Dam, the electricity that powered the West Coast war industries and that still powers the American West today, runs through infrastructure Kaiser built in the 1930s. Three lessons from Henry Kaiser's life. First, apply manufacturing logic to any problem. Kaiser had never built a ship. He applied what he knew, construction, sequencing, scale, assembly, to a new industry. The question, what would this look like if we treated it as a manufacturing problem, produces breakthroughs in almost any field. The skills transfer, the mindset transfers, the industry is almost irrelevant. Second, take care of your workers and they take care of you. Kaiser built hospitals, schools, housing, and health plans for his workers. Healthier workers were more productive workers. The healthcare investment paid for itself many times over. Looking after the people who work for you is not charity, it is strategy. Third, never let the establishment tell you it cannot be done. East Coast shipyards told Washington they had it covered and worked actively to block Kaiser from the industry. He found another route, built his own yards, and outproduced every one of them. The gatekeepers of any industry are rarely its best performers. The person who is told they don't belong is sometimes the one who changes everything. A school dropout at 13. The Hoover Dam at 49. A ship in 4 days at 60. The largest not-for-profit health plan in America at 60. Henry Kaiser never stopped building, and the things he built are still standing. Thank you for joining us for episode 34. Our next episode is Helena Rubinstein, the immigrant woman who built the first global cosmetics empire from nothing and became one of the wealthiest self-made women in history. Until then, stay curious.